Alright, so things have changed a little bit around here. I have reorganized and reworked and shuffled stuff around so that, well, not so that anything in particular, except that now, instead of looking at my Cradle of Filth posters over on that wall, you're looking at my weeb shit back on that wall. Not much difference, really. So let me just clear off the screen here. The main thing that I'm trying to go for with this is just, I mean, the major thing that I am looking for is just to kind of switch things up and make things a little bit better on Season 3. And I thought, well, you know, this might be better. So instead of, like, sitting next to me, you're kind of sitting in front of me. It'd be more interesting at the very least. And I would be lying if I didn't observe that I think it's really funny that when I lean back, you can see Megaman and Aqua over my shoulder. That's very amusing to me. Because I am an easily amused person and I'm basically 9. Anyway, this past week, I did spend a couple days playing Starfield. Starfield is kind of tedious right now because what I'm working on is I'm very frustrated by a quest bug I'm encountering with Barrett, where I can't seem to complete cannot seem to complete his quest where you have to, like, figure out what happened to his husband. That never seems to finish properly. And because that quest never seems to finish, it gets wedged. And because it gets wedged, I can't get the Worlds Apart quest to start. So that causes an additional problem in that there is one power in the game, Supernova, that is the last power you get. Which means you have to get the other 23 powers first. Well, if Barrett's quest is wedged, you can't get the 23rd power. And if you can't get the 23rd power, then clearly you can't get the 24th power. So both of those powers end up being unavailable. And what I've been doing is I've just been going, well, fuck this shit, and using console commands to add them into my character. And what I'm trying to do is track down a process for getting Barrett's quest to work, because nobody seems to have come up with that yet. And that essentially means that I have to do every single Starfield NG Plus the slow way, which is frustrating and annoying. But at the same time, every single playthrough of Starfield on New Game Plus is going to take about 2.5 to 3 hours of nothing but going to temples. That's like the only thing you're doing for those 3 hours. And you can spread those 3 hours out over the course of the playthrough, or you can just buckle in and grind them out all at once. And if you buckle in to grind them out all at once, this is tremendously tedious and annoying, and it's not fun at all. It's kind of stupid. And if you do that, it's your own fucking fault. So I don't know why people go around complaining about it. And they go, it's so tedious and annoying working my way through all 24 of these quests and then starting my New Game Plus and then doing it again and again and again. Bitch, you just signed up for 40 hours of nothing but this bullshit. Do other stuff, like, what is wrong with you? So anyway, that's kind of where things are with Starfield. And now let's kind of talk about where things are with the art. I haven't really talked a whole lot about this, but there's a huge amount of shit that needs to get done for the game. And I'm trying to do a whole lot of stuff all at once. I know I'm kind of like bouncing around from one thing to the next, and And one day I'm working on character design, the other day I'm working on like shading hair, and the next I'm working on hands. It is just, why don't I just focus in and get good at something? Because I have to get good at everything, okay? Or at least, like, I have to become mediocre at everything. And there's just, God, so much stuff. I have a newfound appreciation and respect for literally everybody that does any kind of art, because honestly, holy crap, this shit is obnoxious. It's such a pain in the butt. And the thing is that I'm bouncing around among all of this stuff because in order to get the game that I'm working on done, I have to do 10 different images. I have these 10 anime girls that I'm drawing, but it's not just any anime girl, okay? They're specific characters with specific designs, and each of them has 10 different outfits. And then for each of those 10 different outfits, there's a background that goes behind there. So there's 10 backgrounds, and there's 100 different characters and outfits. You got 10 different characters, each of them has 10 different outfits. And right there, you've got 110 pieces of work. That's a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's really obnoxious. This picture is this illustration is not started properly. It hasn't been started with all the appropriate layers. But that right there is like 110 things, and then on top of that, there are a bunch of other images, a bunch of other graphics that need to be done. Like, primarily, there's a whole lot of user interface stuff. And the user interface stuff that I got to do, it's a lot of menus and icons and sprites and stuff like that. And then there's a tutorial that needs to be done, and I got to have dialogue boxes and a text framework and stuff like that. That's not all that difficult. But there's a tremendous amount of graphic work that needs to be done. And when you start expanding this out across the additional games, you wind up with like 300 different pieces of art that need to be constructed. And even if each of those is only like an hour and a half, you're talking 450 hours of work. And 450 hours of work, I mean, that's like 4 months of full-time effort all at once. And that's working 8 hours a day, which is unsustainable for any kind of like detailed art. You can't just work 8 hours solid a day. So we're really looking at like 6 months of nothing but art, and then we still haven't gotten to the music, we haven't gotten to the sound effects, we haven't gotten to the programming, although most of the programming's fairly simple. And all of that stuff together, it's a huge amount of work. And I've always kind of looked at the programming part as being the hard part. And it's the hard part in the sense that you need to know more and have a particular set of skills to do the programming at all. But the art, holy crap, there's a lot of it. There's an outrageous amount of art. So I have this whole new appreciation and respect for people that do art for video games. Because this is a lot of work. Like a whole lot of work. And I'm trying to get good at it, but I'm not there yet. And that's kind of frustrating. But anyway, to kind of jump out of that, and I know that we're like 10 minutes in on this episode, and hardly anything has been done, but the thing I want to kind of talk about today is perspective, because I've been thinking about this a lot, and it kind of works like this. Everybody understands, here's your horizon line. Actually, it's let's do a nice even horizon. Okay? everybody understands that the horizon line is infinity and everything just like disappears at this point. I want a narrower horizon line. Okay, there we go. So there's our nice narrow horizon line. Now, everybody kind of understands that when you got something real close, it's like up in your face like this, okay? But when it's out at the horizon line, it disappears into infinity. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is, and I'm really kind of looking at the real underlying technical points about perspective. You have this idea of there's a place where you're standing, and when you look down at the place where you're standing, when you look down, straight down at something, like let's say you have some random arbitrary object like, I don't know, a DVD case or something. Okay, if you have something that you're looking straight down on, you can see that the 90-degree angle here is a 90-degree angle. And when you're looking straight down at that, you can see the 90-degree angle on it. You can see that it's 90 degrees, okay? But as that gets farther away and you kind of look up, that angle gets more and more obtuse until eventually, as it reaches infinity, as it gets far enough away, as it comes up to your eye line, in other words, you can't see the top of it anymore. You just see a line. And it gets smaller as it gets farther away from you, of course. So that gets smaller as it gets farther away, and the whole time that you've got it going out there, you've got your vanishing points because you're looking at a corner here, so you're looking at 2-point perspective. And because you're looking at 2-point perspective, all of your lines are going to this vanishing point. So they're going to these vanishing points, and they get farther and farther apart as you get farther and farther up, because this is a 90-degree angle. So here's the thing. All those lines go to the vanishing point. So typically what you're looking at when you start talking about the vanishing points on the horizon, when you're talking about 2-point perspective, you're typically thinking in terms of you're looking at a cube. You're looking at a 90-degree angle. You're looking at an object with angles that are 90 degrees. But the reality is that when you're talking about these kind of 90-degree angles, which converge at your station point down here, which is where the viewer is standing, this actually applies to any angle. So if you have a 60-degree angle at your station point, this is your vanishing point. So if instead of looking down on a square, you're instead looking down on a triangle like this, if you're looking down on a triangle instead of a square, then you can draw your standard vanishing point out to there, and you can draw the 60-degree vanishing point out to there. And when you then draw this up here, that goes over to there, but that goes over to there, okay? And it's a different vanishing point than if something were to be a square. And that's how you get these kind of inclined planes. And it's the same way if you had another vanishing point out here. If you actually did have a square, but it was oriented in that way, then your vanishing point would be way out there, and you'd be drawing the lines differently. Well, obviously, lines differently. Whenever you're drawing anything different, you draw the lines differently. That's stupid. Why I'm bothering to say that. But when you're looking straight down, you typically have your vanishing points are oriented at a 90-degree angle. But your vanishing points really depend on the orientation of the plane. This 90-degree vanishing point thing only works for things that are square. If you have something that is not square, something that perhaps is trapezoidal, then your trapezoidal object, like so, that needs a whole different vanishing point that is way out there. And then as you project that upward, you're going out to that vanishing point out there and over to this vanishing point over here. And you're seeing a slightly different shape. It still needs to be a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the stuff that I'm sort of looking at right now because I'm not exceptionally good at the perspective thing. And I've been looking at perspective all week long, and I've been looking at how people explain it. They say how to do a square in perspective. Well, you got your 90-degree vanishing points from your station point. They're 90 degrees because you're making a square. That's why they're 90 degrees, because you're going to be making a square. If you were going to be making a triangle, they would not be 60 degrees. They would not be 90 degrees. They would probably be 60 degrees, like so. You would have 60-degree vanishing points like this, so that they could properly represent a triangle. But you have your 90-degree vanishing points. You have your 90-degree vanishing points because you're doing a square, okay? And when you project that upward and you go, okay, here's my square, and here are the lines to my vanishing points, right here. Now, working from those, actually the thing that I'm trying to demonstrate here, because you're looking at a square, you're going off to the side here, you're going off to the side here. But now you have to figure out the proper sides of the square, okay? Because this is going to look smaller because it's farther out there. So the question is, how do you determine the proper length of the square? And what I keep seeing people do is go, oh, well, what you do is you come in from that vanishing point, and then that tells you that side of the square, and then you use your 45-degree vanishing point, which is right here in the middle. That tells you how long that side over there is. So you can draw your perfect square. Now, the frustration I've got is, how do you know that's the right length? How do you make sure that is the right length? And I don't have a good answer for this. But I feel like there should be one. I feel like there should be a way to say, this is the proper length of a side of the square. And then to project that upward and to go, okay, if that's the proper length of a side of the square, and we pull that upward, that's where that should be. But I'm not sure that's right either, because it's angled. Because the side is angled. So you should actually, you should project this point back right here. And that should tell you the appropriate point to go to that vanishing point there. I've been wrestling with this because I keep seeing people that are telling you how to draw a perfect square and know it's a perfect square, and how to draw a perfect cube and know that it's a perfect cube. But what I do not see people talking about is, I do not see people talking about how do you draw a 1 meter line at a 45-degree angle in perspective. And the distances, like, the scaling of it is a very frustrating thing for me, trying to figure out how the scale works and how that fits together, because it's important to understand, did I draw this figure in an appropriate size? And I feel like all of the tutorials that I see are like, well, here's how you guarantee that whatever arbitrary side length you draw here is the same on all 4 sides. Yeah, but what if I don't just want it to be the same? I want it to be a specific length. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of coverage for that. Nobody's really talking about how you project specific distances back. And I feel like that's missing. I don't know if it really is. I mean, on some level, you just you select an arbitrary unit and you go, okay, this far is like 6 inches. You say this is 6 inches, and then you measure everything based on that. If it's supposed to be a foot long, then you make it twice as long. If it's supposed to be 3 inches long, you make it half as long. And you just use any arbitrary division at the appropriate scale. And then you can just project everything else based on that. But in order to project everything else based on that, I kind of feel like you need to know what the scale you're working with is. And I don't really have a solid understanding of it. I don't feel like that's been explained sufficiently in the reference material that I have. And I don't feel like anybody's explaining it. Like, if you're imagining that your horizon is a 6-foot-tall person staring out at the horizon, how big should a thing of a particular size be? And that's difficult. I kind of feel like what we're doing is we're setting a height with how far down we put the station. But it's not a real measurable height, because you're measuring it against the horizon. You're measuring it against the eye level, and the eye level could be directed slightly downward. The eye level could be directed slightly upward. There's also this whole thing around your cone of vision, which is 30 degrees in either direction. A bunch of people talk about that. And I always kind of sit there and go, don't you want that to be basically your whole paper? And if you want that to be your whole paper, then don't you want all your vanishing points off the paper? Oh no. This is the hard part of self-teaching. You don't have anybody to ask these questions. And even when you're part of a community and you go and you try to ask these questions, it just feels like people in general get angry at you for asking the questions. Like you say, well, how do you figure this part out? And instead of saying, I don't know, they say, oh, you don't need to do that. Well, why not? Why don't I need to do that? Why doesn't it matter? If it matters, how do I do it? If it doesn't matter, why doesn't it matter? Like, I'm trying to do a thing and I don't know how to do it. Like, I'm trying to figure out if I'm standing here and I'm looking out at the horizon, where exactly is where is the eye line of a subject I'm drawing supposed to be? Like, how do I place that subject? I feel like that has something to do with why I draw people and they don't look like they're in the scene. They look like they're kind of floating above the ground or sinking into the ground or something. It's just something looks off. And I know it's because of my, well, it's because of a combination of my perspective and my foreshortening and my placement of the horizon. And there's, you can hear the frustration. you can hear me over here going, God, what's the fucking problem here? The frustrating thing for me about all of this is I know there are answers to my questions. There have to be. But nobody seems to know them. And that's very frustrating. So I'm looking at things and trying to figure them out, and nobody's really being that helpful. But that's, I don't exactly have a circle of artists that I hang out with. I don't hang out with artists. I hang out with technical. I hang out with weebs. There used to be a bunch of artists among the weebs that I hang out with, but now all the artists seem to have buggered off. I'm not really sure why, but probably because they're frustrated with me for taking so long to learn how to do all this basic shit. You should be making more progress. Well, fine, fuck you too. But yeah, I'm looking at perspective and looking at the technical aspects of perspective. And I'm looking at how everything fits together, and I'm going, how do you abstract that sufficiently that you can make accurate 3-point perspective? Because it's like this perspective right here, this perspective square that I've drawn, and like if I get rid of that and I just go, okay, here's a square in perspective. That square is lying flat on the ground. Like the ground around it is just like flat. But if you were to tilt this upward, if you were to lift this corner of it upward, okay, then obviously you would get a slightly different shape. And because you're looking at it differently, you'd get kind of this, you'd get this downward motion of the vanishing point. The vanishing point here, right here, the vanishing point is like straight down. But when you lift it up, the vanishing point is a surface normal. And because it's a surface normal, you know, now we've got Now we've got the vanishing point located someplace closer to the plane, and you would have this different situation, because as your top plane is moving upward, it's also moving closer, so it would be larger. And I don't know how to extrapolate from the rules I'm learning about perspective to something like that, because everything seems to be geared toward, you have all these 90-degree angles, and you use a 45-degree angle to create an additional vanishing point. That additional vanishing point on the horizon allows you to you locate the front corner of your box. Well, now I want to know where this corner needs to be, so I can come from this vanishing point to the exact right point somewhere on this line. I don't have an easy way to do that. Well, that's okay. We'll just draw something right there like that. Now, in order to draw a square effectively, I use the 45-degree vanishing point to identify the diagonal, and then I come out from this vanishing point to that location, and then I've got my perspective square. And then I can extrapolate by doing an isosceles triangle here. If I rotate this vanishing point up to here, and I draw from this point here down to this back point here, that will come down at a location that gives me the proper height of a cube, and then that gives me a perfect cube in perspective. And the only problem is, why? Why does rotating this upward and going through this corner, why does that give me the appropriate height? Is that the only way to get the appropriate height? This doesn't seem like it would work reliably. It doesn't seem like it's accurate. And I don't understand why that happens. I don't understand why this length is the proper length. Why is that the proper length? It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. And I'm not sure how to make it make sense. And I don't have anybody to ask questions about it. And I don't have any meaningful information about why that works. And I can see that it does work. I've seen like a dozen people explain that this is how you do that, but I don't know why, and I want to know why, and that's very frustrating because nobody's explaining why. And if I find out why, obviously I'm going to fucking tell you about it, because that's what I do, is explain why. You can absolutely hear how frustrated I am. And, yeah. I need to be able to draw background. And those backgrounds need to fit together in a reasonable way. This is going to be rotated. See here, angle of this and the angle of this, they don't match. They don't go to the same vanishing point. So because they don't go to the same vanishing point, this comes over here, but in order for this to go over here, this needs to go to a different vanishing point over there because it's rotated. Is that right? If I take that over here, okay, no, it go the other direction. So instead of going this way, this needs to go a little bit more this way. That much. So if we put another one here and we give it yet another different swing, it's all about the angles that things are at. If you've got something that's flat on in front of you, then that's going to have single point perspective. And it's going to go to that vanishing point right there. If we kind of wipe those out. Every individual object, based on its angle to the viewer, is going to have its own vanishing points, because if you angle that just a little bit, it needs to go to different vanishing points. Same thing over here. If you angle it the other way, it needs to go to different vanishing points. This was a missing piece for me for a really long time, the idea that different objects in the same scene have different vanishing points. And this kind of rotational thing that goes on, this this isn't exactly hard to kind of envision and pick up in your head, but I have difficulty figuring out how exactly I'm going to make this happen in a scene. If you're drawing a fence, well, drawing the fence, if you know you're going to have a fence post here, and you know that between here and here, you want to have two more fence posts, okay? Then you're dividing this into thirds, so, and there are your two fence posts right there. Well, not actually. I didn't do the greatest job on, because here's your vanishing point. and go from side to side. You want to keep following the vanishing. So there's one pole. There's the second there. And that gives you your divisions, and you can see that each of these gets a little bit narrower as you go down. Except like right here, it's actually wider because I fucked up drawing it. Just scrolling things down. And it's all very kind of train of thought and stream of consciousness, as usual. But it's like, I need to draw all of the, I need to do backgrounds for like various people to be existing in. And just, I feel like a child just drawing stuff, crayons. And I don't know, it's just like, because you look at stuff, I mean, you look at things like the olive trees that Monet did, and you can do Impressionist work, and Impressionist work can sit beside or behind more realistic work. Higurashi no Nakokoro ni does that all the time, and they kind of take these blurry, fuzzed out photographs that you can't make out any detail in, and they put them behind these crisp, clear anime pictures. And that works just fine. So I'm fine with doing that. I need to have appropriate material to go back there. I need to be able to do like an Impressionist playground, something that reads as a playground. It reads as a something that reads as the kind of scene that I'm trying to produce. I'm not doing a very good job on maybe I need to get back to working on landscapes. Maybe that's something I should kind of jump back onto. I think that's where we started season 2, now that I think about it. That's not a bad place to start. I mean, landscapes are I do have a book on landscapes that I just recently picked up, so I should grab that, like put more effort into it, I guess. I do a lot of musing, I do a lot of thinking, and that comes from being a software developer, because that's where like 90% of the problems are solved. Is you do your stuff in it's like you write your code, but before you write your code, you spend days or weeks thinking about what code you're going to write. And then when you go and you write the code, you know exactly what the code is, and you write it and you're done. But with art, it doesn't matter how much you think about it. It doesn't matter how carefully you plan it out. There are still thousands of brushstrokes to be placed on the canvas. And all of those brushstrokes take time, and they all need to be done, and there just aren't that many ways to reduce the amount of time they take and the amount of effort that's in. That's before you even begin to consider the reality that even if you have the clearest picture in your head of what the picture needs to be, getting your hands to make that picture, that's the hard part. It's just it's a really difficult process for me, and I have real trouble with it. I think everybody has the same general problems with it, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. We're gonna get it done. It's gonna be finished at some point. I'm going to be good enough to do the work. Then I have to buckle in and do the work, and it's going to take like 6 months. And God. Thinking about how much time and effort this is going to take is really kind of, it's starting to hit me that these things I'm doing are going to take years. And I felt for the past, God, 5 years now. For the past 5, well, 4 really, because it was just a few months before I turned 50 that I started working on this stuff. But for about 4 years now, I've thought that putting in this effort beforehand would make it fairly simple for me to complete each step in this in just a couple of months. And no, it's going to take 7, 8, 9 months just to get stuff out the door. Not even to do the marketing and sales and promotion. It's just so much time. Like, I think this is really the first time since I started working on all this stuff that I'm starting to ask, is it worth it? Is it worth these years to make this happen when I don't even know if this is necessarily the right way to go? I mean, I got 8 games planned, and it's starting to look like each one of these games, even once I get to the point that my art is good enough, I'm looking at over a year for each one of them to make it through development and get to the market. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about the idea that getting these games out is going to take me 10 years. 'Cause that's a lot of time, especially at my. I don't know. I really, really don't know. Fuck, this has gotten terribly morose all of a sudden. Um, I do think it's valuable to go through this thought process and to go through all of the thinking and considering and planning and whatnot in front of people. So at the very least, you can see me doing it, and you can know that we'll do it. And who knows? Maybe you've never really sat down and thought about how much stuff there is on the list for the thing that you're doing and when you can realistically get it done and how that's actually going to work. I see a lot of people, they make plans and they just go, this will take 3 months. Sure, you can do that in 3 months? It's kind of like where I am with NaNoWriMo. I still haven't written anything, but I'm not worried because, you know, like I said, I'm a fairly fast writer when I put my brain to it. It wouldn't be hard at all for me to just sit down and go, okay, for the next 10 days, I'm going to write 5,000 words a day. I can do that. 5,000 words a day is achievable. 5,000 words a day isn't even a lot for me. I still haven't done anything. It's been 18 days. We're 18 days into National Novel Writing Month, and I have written absolutely nothing. I kind of thought about a thing that I wanted to write. I kind of considered some ways I wanted to approach it, but I haven't actually written anything down yet. I haven't even opened Scrivener and started a project file. I've done absolutely nothing. And that is to a large degree like where I'm sitting with a lot of stuff, except with Starfield. 1,100 hours in Starfield. There's a guy I watch. I don't want to call him out because I'm about to say some mean stuff. Um, there's a guy I watch on YouTube who's documenting his indie game development journey, and he's a fucking idiot. Yes, he has no idea he has no idea what he's doing. Um, and he just kind of he decided to jump in with both feet, and I applaud that. Yes, jump in with both feet. And he put everything on the line, and yes, I applaud that. Put everything on the line. But he has absolutely no idea what he's doing, and he's gradually finding out as he goes that he has no idea what he's doing, and he's getting very depressed, and he's kind of looking at this. He's getting this big reality check moment as he goes, where he's just like, this is not the way I thought things were going to go. And that's typical, actually. They say that no battle plan survives an encounter with the enemy. No business plan survives an encounter with reality. And I watch this guy and I shake my head because he's utterly clueless. He has no idea what he's doing. Like he doesn't know how to do the things that he's setting out to do. And that's kind of where I am with the art. But the difference is I knew when I started out, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's perfectly sensible and reasonable in my book that it would take me years to figure out what I'm doing. But he's getting to the point, he's starting to get to, like, I don't want to say exactly where he is, because you'd suss out who it is. But he's getting to a point that's far along in his game development journey, and he's realizing this is going to be really hard, and it's going to take a really long time, and he's severely underestimated how much time and energy this is going to take. And I've also severely underestimated how much time and energy this is going to take. But I do keep reality checking myself and going, how long is this going to take? How much of this stuff needs to be done? And, if I can do the character drawings in an hour each, that's not bad, then I could get that done in like 5 or 6 weeks. Not a big deal. But if I need 3 and 4 hours for all of them, even worse if I need 12, it's going to take forever. And when you start talking about the question of if you're doing a visual novel that's going to have over 1,000 character graphics, then those can't take very much time at all. You have to multiplex those, and you have to figure out ways that you can reuse work, and that you can get work out very, very quickly. I don't know how to do that, and I'm not sure how to go about learning to do that. So there's a lot of stuff that I need to work out, and I'm not sure how to work this stuff out. I don't know. I don't know where to begin learning what I need to learn. I've got a dozen or more books on how to draw anime girls, and they all suck. They're all terrible. None of them actually teach you anything. And it's like, you can't specialize and focus in on that and get any kind of real direction, and that's very frustrating. And I don't know, maybe I need to go and start like paying specific attention to Mikey Mega Mega, or there's a guy, I think it's AJ Art or something. It's AJ something. But there are people who explain specifically how to draw anime chicks, and I think maybe that's an area that I need to focus, maybe not. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's closing up on an hour. It's good enough, it's close enough. Do the little YouTube dance. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I have absolutely no idea what I talked about. Perspective, I guess. I talked substantially about perspective. I guess that's the description. Complaining about perspective, I guess. I suppose that's that's probably the best way to put it. There are always rough patches. Whenever you are learning something, you hit rough patches. You hit plateaus that go on for a long time. You're not sure how to make progress. You're not sure when the progress will be made. And it's frustrating and it's annoying, and you really feel like you just want to give it up and quit. Don't. When you're going through hell, keep going. It's the best advice I can give you. Okay, bye.